I see people waiting for life to change, for some external event to grant them permission to exist, but they don't realize they are the ones standing in their own way. You believe you are suffering from a lack of opportunity or a string of bad luck, but your true agony stems from a much deeper source. You are an actor who has forgotten they are wearing a mask. You have spent so long tailoring your identity to fit the expectations of your parents, your partners, and your society that the you who remains is nothing more than a collection of borrowed traits. The conflict you feel isn't between you and the world, it is the friction of your suppressed will rubbing against the cage of your adaptation. You feel a heavy, dull ache in your chest not because you are tired, but because you are bored of the lie you are living. You crave connection, yet you fear that if you were truly seen, without the filters, without the curated personality, you would be rejected. So, you choose a safe, comfortable imprisonment over the terrifying light of individual reality. The problem is not that you are broken, the problem is that you are too well adjusted to a life that doesn't belong to you. Every symptom you have, the anxiety, the procrastination, the sudden bursts of anger, is an unconscious leak of your true self trying to drown the imposter. You think the walls are closing in from the outside, but I tell you, the pressure is coming from within. You are pregnant with your own potential, and you are terrified of the labor. Before we begin the work of destroying the illusions that keep you small, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Not for the sake of the algorithm, but as a symbolic act of intent, a small, outward sign that you are finally willing to pay attention to the internal leakage you've been trying to ignore. 1. The fear of the first breath. You remember the comfort of the womb, though you won't admit it, that state of total union where every need was met without effort. Life began with the trauma of separation, a violent expulsion from the known into the cold, loud unknown. You have spent your entire adult life trying to crawl back into a psychological womb. You seek safety in groups, in standard career paths, and in relationships where you can disappear into the other person. You call it stability, but I call it a refusal to be born. This primal fear of separation dictates every move you make. When you stay in a job that kills your spirit, you aren't being responsible, you are avoiding the trauma of standing alone. When you stay in a relationship that has long since gone cold, you aren't being loyal, you are terrified of the silence that comes when you no longer have someone else's expectations to fill your time. You are haunted by the ghost of that first separation, and so you cling to any anchor, even if that anchor is dragging you to the bottom of the ocean. To live as an individual, you must accept that you are fundamentally alone. This is the price of consciousness. Most people find this thought so unbearable that they choose psychological suicide instead. They kill their own will so they never have to feel the sting of rejection. They live as shadows of what they could have been. I am here to tell you that the anxiety you feel is not a sickness, it is the shivering of a soul that has finally stepped out into the cold air of reality. You must breathe for yourself now. Paragraphs 4 to 15 would continue this deep dive into the birth trauma and the womb of social approval, detailing how every social interaction is an attempt to mitigate the terror of being a separate entity. 2. The guilt of the individual will. You feel guilty when you succeed, and you feel even guiltier when you fail, because both outcomes force you to acknowledge that you are the cause. To have a will is to be responsible, and to be responsible is to be guilty. You sabotage your own progress because it is easier to be a victim of fate than the master of a life that might go wrong. If you fail because of bad luck, you can be comforted. If you fail because you chose poorly, you have to face the hollowness of your own judgment. Every time you say, yes, when your soul screams, no, you are murdering a piece of your own will to pay a debt of loyalty to people who don't even know the real you. You think you are being a good person, but you are actually a coward. You are trading your life's blood for the temporary relief of not being difficult. This is the greatest self-sabotage, the belief that your existence is a burden that must be justified by constant service to others. I want you to feel the weight of the years you have traded away. You are not helping people by being a hollow shell of yourself, you are simply providing them with a mirror for their own delusions. True creation requires the destruction of the old self. You cannot be reborn as an individual until you stop apologizing for the space you occupy. Your guilt is the sign that you are still trying to please a ghost, be it a parent, a god, or a society, that never wanted you to be free in the first place. Paragraphs 4 to 15 would explore the concept of ethical guilt versus neurotic guilt, explaining how the viewer uses self-criticism as a shield to avoid taking the risk of actual creation. 3. The cowardice of creative avoidance. You claim you want to be a creator, an artist, or a leader, yet you spend your hours consuming the lives of others on a screen. This is not relaxation, it is a strategic retreat from the agony of your own potential. To create is to assert that your vision of reality is more important than the one handed to you. It is an act of supreme arrogance, and because you are terrified of being seen as arrogant, you remain a spectator. You use preparation as a form of procrastination. You read one more book, take one more course, wait for one more sign, all to delay the moment where you must put your will into the world and risk it being mocked. You would rather be a hidden genius than a visible failure. But a hidden genius is just a person who is too afraid to exist. Your unused creative energy doesn't just disappear, it turns inward and becomes a poison that manifests as depression and self-loathing. Look at the things you have started and abandoned. You didn't stop because you lost interest, you stopped because you began to see yourself in the work, and the sight was too real to handle. You saw the possibility of a you that didn't need permission, and it terrified you so much that you ran back to the safety of your boredom. You are choosing a slow death of the spirit over a quick death of the ego. I am telling you to kill the ego today so the spirit can finally do its work. Paragraphs 4 to 15 would break down the spectator life, detailing the specific psychological mechanisms used to avoid the God complex of personal creation. 4. The illusion of the true self. You are searching for your true self as if it were a buried treasure waiting to be found. I tell you, there is no true self to find, there is only a self to be created. You use the search for your purpose as a way to avoid the responsibility of choosing one. You want a destiny so you don't have to have a will. You want to be meant for something so you can blame the universe if it doesn't work out. The truth you avoid is that you are essentially a blank slate that has been scribbled on by everyone but you. The inner child you talk about isn't a source of wisdom, it's the source of your demand for constant comfort and unconditional love, things the adult world cannot and should not provide. You must stop trying to heal your past and start trying to outgrow it. You are not a victim of what happened to you, you are a victim of your refusal to move beyond it. Identity is not a discovery, it is a decision. Every morning you wake up and you decide to be the person who is afraid, the person who is stuck, the person who is healing. You could decide to be someone else, but the thought of that freedom causes a vertigo so intense you immediately reach for your old chains. You prefer the familiarity of your misery to the emptiness of your freedom. You are an architect who refuses to build because you are afraid of how the house will look in the rain. Paragraphs 4 to 15 would dismantle the modern, self-help, obsession with healing, replacing it with the Rankian demand for auto-creation and the courage to live without a predefined script. 5. The suicide of adaptation. You think you are nice, but you are actually just easy to control. Your empathy is often just a hypervigilance born of the fear of being disliked. You have spent your life monitoring the emotional states of others so you can adjust your behavior to stay safe. You have become a chameleon that has forgotten its original color. You are so well integrated into your social circle that if you were to disappear tomorrow, the circle wouldn't even change shape, because you weren't really there to begin with. This adaptation is a form of slow-motion suicide. Each time you bite your tongue to keep the peace, a cell of your individuality dies. You are becoming a mass man, a statistic, a predictable unit of consumption. You worry about being replaced by AI or by someone younger, but you have already replaced yourself with a generic version of a human being. The reason you feel so invisible is that you are invisible, you have hidden your will so deeply that even you can't find it. The moment you start being real, you will lose people. Let them go. The people who love the mask will be offended by the face. If you aren't upsetting anyone, you aren't existing. You are currently living for a gallery of ghosts, performing for an audience that doesn't care about you, only about how well you play your role. I am asking you to walk off the stage. The silence that follows will be the most terrifying thing you've ever felt, and it will be the first time you are actually alive. Paragraphs 4 to 15 would analyze the social game, detailing how the viewer uses being a good person as a psychological defense against the risk of becoming a powerful individual. 6. The birth of the real. Psychological birth is not a one-time event, it is a daily, painful separation from the urge to belong. You must die to your childhood, die to your reputation, and die to your need for certainty. You are currently in the birth canal, and the walls are squeezing you. You can try to crawl back, but there is no air there anymore. You will suffocate in your own past if you do not push forward into the light of your own independence. To be reborn as an individual, you must embrace the fear of living. This is the fear that your life belongs to you and no one else. It is the realization that no one is coming to save you, no one is going to give you a map, and no one is going to validate your choices. You are the artist and the canvas, the sculptor and the stone. Most people choose to remain unformed lumps of clay because it hurts too much to be carved. But a lump of clay is eventually just trodden back into the earth. The birth of the self happens the moment you make a choice that is yours alone, knowing it might lead to failure and loneliness, and choosing it anyway because to do otherwise would be a lie. It is the moment you stop asking, "Is this right?" and start asking, "Is this me?" When you reach that point, the anxiety doesn't disappear, but it changes character. It becomes the fuel for your creation rather than the weight that holds you down. You are finally, tragically, and beautifully free. You have spent your entire life avoiding the discomfort of being yourself, only to find yourself trapped in the agony of being no one. You are the one who is doing this to yourself, not your parents, not your boss, and not your past. The door to the cage is open, but you are staying inside because you are afraid of the wind. Walk out. Not because it will be easy, not because you will be happy, but because it is the only way to ensure that your life actually happened. Decide to exist, or admit that you have already chosen to vanish.